Hey everybody, how's it going? Dinosuchus86 here, and today's video I'm going to go over uh, basically I'm going to go over ways that you can learn about a new subject or a subject you're interested in. This is Lily. She's been in one of my other videos. She's rotten. Um, but there are a few ways that uh, you can learn more about a particular subject. If you have a subject you're interested in and you want to learn about that subject, by all means learn. Uh, if if it is a if it is a skill that you want to learn, if it's something like drawing or knitting or sewing or any kind of DIY kind of thing, uh, you can read about the basics, you can watch videos on the basics, but the best way to learn is to do. That's number one. Today, though, we're going to talk about skills themselves. What I'm going to talk about is if you want to gain knowledge in something like science or history. Um, Math, I would say math as well. The thing about math is the best way to learn math is to do math. So if you want to learn if you want to learn higher math, uh, by all means, watch videos, read books. But there's a lot of information, there's a lot of worksheets and things on Facebook, or not Facebook, I'm sorry, on the internet. Find those. Uh, do those. The more you do, the easier things will get. Um, when it comes to science and history, if there are subjects you want, you do have the options. There are documentaries. Documentaries are good. However, documentaries, a lot of times, especially on big channels like Discovery, History Channel, that kind of thing, those documentaries are sensationalized. Um, so Shark Week, I used to love Shark Week as a kid. Now I don't watch Shark Week because Shark Week plays into fear. They go the deadliest sharks, this, that, and the other. I don't like that. That's not good. Um, you shouldn't be playing into fear just to get views if you want to teach somebody something. And a lot of times the information they have on these is not the best information. I mean, it's got really cool videos of sharks, but it's still not the best information. Um, a good PBS documentaries are really good. They're not. Some can be sensationalized, but most of them aren't. Those are really good. Um, Things like the Smithsonian Channel. Those are really good. I highly recommend things like that. YouTube. You have to be careful with YouTube. This same way as you have to be careful with the internet. Uh, Things like Wikipedia and Reddit do not give the best information. Um, Things on YouTube do not give the best information. By all means, even my channel, if you see a subject on my channel and you watch that video, do not take me as 100% fact. I get things wrong. Most YouTubers do. Well, all YouTubers do. Uh, but the best way to go about things, especially on YouTube and internet as well, if it plays into sensationalism, the YouTube videos or the websites that say deadliest animals or um, that kind of thing, or who would win between an anaconda and a lion, or who would win between a shark and a crocodile. Those things, stay away from those things. Those things are not. If they throw some information, but they get a lot of things hyped. Stay away from those. If you want to learn, if you want to be entertained, that's what they do, but they do not teach. Um, Go on, Lily. But um, Yeah, so those are good. Or but YouTube videos, YouTube channels that center around universities, um, those are good. Um, there are really good YouTubers out there, a lot of them, and a lot of them cover science. Um, if you want to learn electrical engineering, electroboom. If you want to learn, uh, watch chemistry videos. There's um, explosions and fire. Um, there's a lot of really good YouTube channels with chemistry. Um, the ETSU, which is my alma mater, they have a paleontology YouTube channel. Those kind of things are really good. Um, just watch because they are some that sensationalize. In particular, there was one who I don't remember his name. A few years ago, there's a there's a game called For Honor, and this YouTuber made this video about the characters in For Honor, which were a knight, a samurai, and a Viking, and the information he gave was extremely misleading and very wrong. Though he stated it as fact, um, even though it wasn't. Um, so yeah, you can watch YouTube. You can find information. The thing of it is, always do your research afterward. Or if you find something, don't take that as the gospel. Don't take it as 100% true. And this is going to go into the books as well. Um, if you're reading history, um, if you want to go into history, there's three types of sources in history. There's the primary sources, which are sources that were wrote at the time that it happened by people who observed it, or who were told stories of people who observed it. Uh, the best primary sources are things like journals from war, soldiers' journals in war. Um, there's really good information in those. Granted, that information is going to be uh, somewhat one-sided for a large part. Uh, a British soldier is not going to write a story about how great America is in the Revolutionary War when he's fighting against the colonists. The same way with the American soldiers, they're not going to talk about how great the British were, uh, and very rarely will they talk about how good the fighters were. Uh, but um, that's you just got to take that with a grain of salt. Those are really good if you're interested in those kind of things. Um, the thing with it, another thing is, it only gives information on what they're writing about. If they're writing a letter to their family during the Civil War after the Battle of Antietam, and that's what they're talking about, that's going to be their experience at that time during that battle. Um, and it's only going to be focused on what they experienced. Um, that's the good thing about history is that, um, especially primary sources, um, especially with sources since literacy has become a lot more common thing in since the Industrial Revolution, um, and before, during during the Civil War, literacy was a lot more prevalent. Uh, there were still a lot of illiterate people out, but uh, literacy was a lot more common than it had been in, say, the Renaissance or the medieval age times. So there were a lot of soldiers writing letters home, and it gives a lot of information, and you can learn a lot from those sources. Um, things like biographies are really good. Biographies a lot of times will take primary sources as well as history books. If you go to something like Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and you look for history books, they take primary sources and use those sources to write the book about what happened during that point in time. Um, by all means, read history books, read biographies. Um, textbooks. Textbooks are tertiary sources. They take information from both primary and the secondary sources to write the textbooks. The problem with textbooks is there's a lot of information covering a large time span, so the information is limited on what they can have per incident. Um, so they may have one or two paragraphs from a letter from a civil war if you're reading about American history in that in that paragraph. If that, a lot of times they will focus on the general's reports and that kind of thing, the officer reports. Uh, and the thing of it is, these books, both history books, the biographies, not so much textbooks. Textbooks have to be more more unbiased. But a lot of times the history books will be biased to one way or another, um, uh, politically speaking. Uh, a history textbook wrote by a right-wing conservative will read different than a textbook wrote by a left-wing progressive. Um, that's just the way things are, unfortunately. And the thing I suggest, at least it helps me, the things I suggest is read both. Read both conservative and progressive. Don't shut off don't shut your mind just because something does not agree with the way your mindset is or the way you're raised. Um, I politically am more centric to most of the time. I'm kind of right down the middle. A lot of times middle left, but that's me. I don't care. Um, they but these things I always find it easier to read both sides myself. Uh, History books are really good. A lot of people find them boring. Now, when it comes to science, history doesn't change all that often, as meaning they may be new sources found on occasion that can rewrite history, but it's very rare that that happens. Um, Archaeological finds may upset things, but archaeology and history are two different things. Archaeology is the study of people through their artifacts. History is the study of written is the study of written history. It's what's wrote down. Um, a historian is not going to be on an archaeological dig site running the dig. It's not how it happens. But archaeology is a science, whereas history is a technically it's a science, but it works different. Um, when it comes to science, again, they are different forms of books. Um, Something like this, dangerous animals. I know it's backwards. I'm sorry. The camera reverses things for whatever reason. Uh, dangerous animals is a really good book. I got this when I was a kid. I'm sure it's out of print now. The copyright on this one is 1999. But this is I liked it. I still do. I mean, it's got really neat pictures, really good pictures of something like a funnel web spider. Uh, they, again, for a kid, they can be somewhat sensationalized. But this one, what I liked about this one is they included the most dangerous animal on Earth is people. Because we, as people, destroy more than we could ever use. Uh, those are good. Those are, especially for kids, they give a little bit of information. Uh, it'll keep the kids occupied. It'll pique their interest in things like science, and it works really well. Um, you have things like textbooks. I love reading textbooks. This one's on oceanography. Um, This is a oceanography and innovation in to marine science, 4th edition. This one was copyrighted in 2002. So the information in this is dated. Again, textbooks cover a lot of information within that page, so they're limited on the amount of information they can give over one subject. Also, science changes rather rapidly. But reading an older textbook like this one was $9. Uh, don't if you read one, don't go into it thinking everything in this is set in stone, this, that, and the other. This will give you an understanding of how the process of oceanography works, how the study of oceanography is, how it's made up. Uh, it gives you fundamentals. Then you can go and learn more based on that. Reading scientific papers after you read a textbook, after you get the introduction into it, go and look up scientific papers. You can find those. That's really good. Um, Again, they can be dated. There's books. Now, this one is from the Indiana Press. This is The King of Crocodilians, The Paleobiology of Dinosuchus. Dinosuchus being the name of my channel, of course. The 30 to 35 foot prehistoric crocodile that lived in the Middle Cretaceous. Middle to late Cretaceous. So this one goes over, this is a textbook that a lot of teachers had recommended. Again, this was in 2002. You can still buy this one on Amazon new. But this one was a new book I bought on Amazon. They're really good. The information can be dated, again, but with something like Dinosuchus, they're found, but the information is not updated as much as something like crocodiles tend not to be studied as much as dinosaurs. A lot of dinosaurs take up a large chunk of what you hear on there. Anyway, books like this, you can find books like this on any scientific subject. If you want to learn biology, there's plenty of natural resources. A good book, if I know some of my viewers may not like it, The Origin of Species. I recommend that. It's a good read if you're interested in that kind of thing. Another good book to read, a set of books to read, if you guess, is field guides. This is the Peterson's Field Guide. I highly recommend any of the Peterson's Field Guides. This is venomous animals and poisonous plants. Just so you know, venom is injected, poison is eaten. Those are the two. But anyway, these are really field guides give a little bit of information about each species that is within the field guide. If you want to learn more about reptiles in eastern North America, the eastern and central North American, the Field Guide to Eastern and Central North American Reptiles and Amphibians by the Petersons is really good. It gives you a couple paragraphs on each species and a few paragraphs on each genus at the beginning of when it goes to list the species. Those kind of things are really good. When it comes down to it, though, out of all of it, watch documentaries, read books, go into it open-minded, and do not take one source as the gospel or one source as being wrote in stone. Even authors get things wrong. So, if you want to learn about dinosaurs, there's a lot of books about dinosaurs. If you want to read about dinosaurs, if you want to learn about dinosaurs, learn about them, because there's a lot that you can do. And there's a lot you can learn. Um, Go into it open-minded. They may be conflicting information. Think outside the box, and just go with, just read as much as you can by different people. Get a general understanding of what the scientific um, principles are, what people generally um, think to be true. Go with that. That's an easy way to go about things. Um, but science is um, science is really interesting. Another really good thing to do if you are interested in science, um, do experiments. Uh, I love doing experiments. If you want to, if you have a question and you cannot find the answer to that question, um, do experiments. Um, let's say you are, um, let's say you wonder, and this is, I'll give you an example. And this is an experiment that I have planned on coming up, that I will make videos on, 2 to 3. I'll go through the setup of this experiment, uh, and then I'll do it. But this is just something that I want to do, and I know the outcome. This is just something I want to do with you all, with my channel. Um, so I want to find out. Let's say I'm going to do an experiment with algae. Um, so the algae growth, and what I'm going to do is the way I'm going to set this up. Is I'm going to have a control, and my question is going to be which water grows the best algae, um, and which water does not. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to introduce algae itself into the equation. Um, the way I'm going to have this set up is I'm going to have 6 jars. I will sterilize those, steam those jars, um, put them through a dishwasher to get them good and sterile. Um, I will have 2 jars of distilled water, 2 jars of um, tap water, and then 2 jars of um, creek water or pond water, depending. Uh, one of the tap or one of the distilled waters is going to be my control. I will fill the jar with distilled water, and I will seal it off. There's nothing else going to be added. The other is going to be kind of part of the experiment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that jar, put distilled water in it, and then I'm going to put a little bit of fertilizer in it to see um, if there is any algae that was in the air between the time that I took the jar out of the algae particles in the air. By the time I took it out of the washer to actually sealing it off, uh, the tap water is going to be the same. One without fertilizer, one with fertilizer. And then the creek water, one without fertilizer and one with. I will have those set up out into the sun, and I will let that set for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer, and watch the algae growth, and we'll go along with that. I'll make the videos with it. This is just something that I want to do, and this will be me setting up an experiment and going over the scientific method. I highly recommend do that. That is extremely. It can be fun. Do it with your kids if you have kids that's interested in science. You can look up experiments and find these things out on your own. You can find these things to do, and That's how we learn, is by testing. So I highly recommend, if you have an interest in anything, go and learn about it. Test it. Go to a zoo if you like animals. Go to museums if you like whatever. If you like history, go to battlefields. Go to historical sites. Um, get out and live it. Life's short, and you shouldn't. Don't worry about what other people think. Just do it. Ain't that right, Billy? Anyway, you all have a great day. Stay safe. Um, especially in this pandemic. And see you all later.